Hey everyone. Today, I'm checking out the Sirui Aurora 35mm f1.4 lens, a new full-frame autofocus prime that Sirui just released. A little insight on this lens. It's a bokeh machine. Creamy soft backgrounds. They sent me this lens to test and give a full and honest review on. I'll have links down below so you can get the best deal on it. I'm a full-time camera dealer, and I've sold over 40,000 cameras and lenses in the last 8 years, including a bunch of C-Ray's previous lenses, so I agreed to give this baby a chance. And in the last 6 weeks, I've taken over 500 shots with it and done some video work too. If you're looking for a 35mm lens for street, travel, portrait, or video work, this lens proves to be a serious contender for the price. It's available in a bunch of different mounts, from Sony E like this one to Fuji, Nikon Z, and Leica L. Sirui created this lens after their popular 2024 85mm f1.4 lens release left a bunch of fans, including me, clamoring for an affordable 35mm version. It currently retails for $549, making it a solid contender for the price, and less than Sony's 35mm FE 1.8 at around $750, Sigma's 35mm f1.4 at around $800, and, of course, Sony's G Master 35mm f1.4, which offers sterling performance, but it's almost 3 times as much at $1,500. The Aurora 35mm f1.4 is a fixed focal length prime lens. It offers a classic 35mm field of view on full-frame cameras, which gives you a natural, slightly wider angle perspective that's great from anything from landscapes and street photography to portraits and wedding photography. Importantly, it is full-frame compatible, so it makes full use of full-frame sensors. This Sony-compatible version is fully compatible with nearly all Sony full-frame cameras for both stills and video. Sirui has a list on their website if you have any questions. This isn't a slow kit lens. With a bright maximum aperture of f1.4, it's built for low light, shallow depth of field, and moody cinematic-looking images. The lens itself is surprisingly compact and portable. It weighs a little over a pound, almost 500 grams, and measures roughly 103 millimeters in length, making it a little bit smaller than average for a 35mm f1.4 from my experience. It features an all-metal build, not cheap plastic, which gives it a solid pro feel in the hand. Some aftermarket lenses that I've used feel really poorly in the hand, but not this one. Physically, the lens also offers nice controls for creative shooters. There's a manual aperture ring, an autofocus manual focus switch, an iris lock button to lock the aperture behind a set value, and even a customizable function button. If you're doing video, that's handy. You can switch to a stepless, click-off aperture mode for smooth transition. Lastly, from a build perspective, the front element has a fluorine coating to repel oil, dust, and fingerprints, and the barrel is dust and moisture resistant. It's not waterproof, but it is good for travel, street, and unpredictable environments. All right, let's talk about optical and performance highlights. Optically, the Aurora 35mm f1.4 is a well-constructed lens. It uses 16 elements and 11 groups, including a combination of 3 spherical elements, 2 extra low dispersion elements, 1 SED and 1 HRI element. This helps control aberrations, reduces chromatic distortion, and keeps color and contrast really clean. The 13-blade diaphragm contributes to smooth, pleasing bokeh, or background blur, when shooting wide open. In fact, that's what this lens does best. Super bokeh. Even wide open, at 1.4, the center of the frame is sharp. Corners improve by roughly 1.8, and stay really solid through the sweet spot apertures like f4 through 5.6. Because of this performance, the lens is really flexible. It's great for low-light street scenes, moody portraits, night photography, environmental storytelling, and even video work where you want subject isolation and cinematic depth simultaneously. I really enjoyed shooting with this lens, particularly sunset scenes. Beautiful scene accuracy. All right, let's go into some of the features and usability of this lens. Here's some practical features that make this Aurora 35mm f1.4 so easy to shoot with. Let's start with autofocus. It uses a built-in STM or stepper motor, similar to Canon's STM lens line, for autofocus with subject tracking and support for IAF, making it usable for fast-paced shooting. It's not the absolute fastest lens out there. I mean, look at the price. But it's more than serviceable. It uses the very common 62mm filter thread and includes a lens hood to reduce flare and protect the front element. Another thing I really like is its flexibility for hybrid shooters like me, and maybe you. With both manual controls, its aperture ring, iris lock, autofocus, manual focus switch, and function button, and a stepless aperture option, it's set up for both photography and video in equal ways. And on the bottom of the lens, it's got a built-in USB port for future firmware updates. All right, now let's talk about some possible trade-offs and additional things to know about this lens. This lens, like most others at its price point, doesn't have optical stabilization built in. So if you're using a camera body without built-in stabilization, or IBIS, you'll need a good technique, or I would recommend getting a tripod for especially slower shutter speeds. Another thing I noticed is the lens hood. It's adequate, but kind of low quality. Small quarrel, but just something to note. The minimum focus distance is a bit further out than some competitors. It's not a macro lens, of course, so you can't get super close. You can get as close as about 35 centimeters. For example, the Sony G Master, you can get as close as about 25 centimeters. Not a big deal for me personally, but I wanted to point it out. Lastly, I want to talk about autofocus just a little bit more. This isn't a pro-fast autofocus. It's smooth and more than usable. But if you're expecting ultra-fast burst focus or professional event speed, you might find it a little bit limiting. Again, for the price of $550, it's right in line with many other lenses that I've used. So let's wrap this up. Who should consider getting this 35mm f1.4? Well, street and travel photographers. The 35mm focal length, compact build, and weather resistance makes it ideal for roaming and spontaneous shooting. Portrait, environmental, or documentary or lifestyle shooters. The wide aperture and bokeh allows for shallow depth of field and separation from backgrounds. Anyone hybrid shooting or content creating, videographers, YouTubers, thanks to the declickable aperture, manual controls, and autofocus, works really well for video interviews, vlogs, run-and-gun shoots, and cinematic content. Low-light shooters. The f1.4 helps in dim environments, like indoor shooting, evening, or night street scenes, without forcing high ISO and introducing noise. Overall, if you want a really affordable and flexible 35mm lens with modern autofocus, a decent build, and a lot of potential, this Sirui 35mm f1.4 is a really compelling choice. Again, I'll have a link down below in the description for both ordering directly from the manufacturer, and I'll also have an Amazon link. As always, thanks for watching, and happy shooting.